Welcome
Welcome
to the
to the
Empress and the
Empress and the
Fool.
Fool.
I'm Sarah Ditmore,
And I'm Caitlin Gulock.
and we're here to discuss all things magical and mystic from the perspective of two curious witches.
Yay!
And we have a very special addition to the podcast today. Everyone say hello to Nicole.
Hi, Nicole.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, Nicole. Nicole is here with us today to talk about the magic of words. So, Nicole is a word magician herself. Between her podcast, It's All Poetry, which explores the meaning and power of words, and her copy studio, Copy Poetics, which helps business owners and entrepreneurs master the art of writing good copy, Nicole lives and breathes words. So, we wanted to bring her on for this episode to talk all about the magic and power of words. But before we get to that, Nicole, what would you like to say about who you are and what you do, and how do you introduce yourself?
Oh my goodness, that was so great. As you were saying it, I was like, I do like live and breathe words. Wow,
Yeah.
maybe I need to try some other stuff in my life sometime, but
I
it's
mean, it's
it's
a healthy
What's
always
a
diet.
hobby?
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's definitely my longest living relationship.
Yeah, definitely. Amazing. Well, we're so excited to be here with you and talk to you about all this. And I guess as we dive into it, something I would love to know is like you said it's your longest relationship. How did you get into words? Where did that love start?
Yeah, that my earliest like memory of knowing that was you know in like
Yeah.
elementary school when they had you maybe it was just my elementary school but they had us like write in the middle of a big white piece of paper like what do you want to be when you grow up and we had to write
Mm,
the word and we had to
Mm-hmm.
circle it and then make like a little mind map. I don't know if it
Yes.
was like a plan of how to get
I
there. I
did
lost the
not do
plan.
this, but you
No.
guys are both nodding your heads like, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I wrote author, like without hesitation,
Mm.
author in the middle
Oh,
of that paper. And I don't have a published book. I have a few published stories. So,
yeah.
but it was always what I wanted to do. And I think a lot of it is only because like a teacher told me I was good at it at one point. Whether she was right or not, I believed
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's
so
so
I pursued
incredible.
it.
Talk about the power of words, right? Like a teacher says
Yeah.
one sentence to you and it becomes an identity.
Yeah. I think a lot of people have that experience where like an
Yeah.
adult says, "Hey, you're a good artist. You could do this when you grow
Yeah.
up." And it becomes like, "Oh, huh. Okay, good."
Yeah. That's
I feel
really
like it gives you
cool.
so much like fuel too. You're like, oh, I didn't know that. I just like doing this thing. And then all of a sudden you like it more now because somebody's like,
You're
hey, you're not
talented.
bad at that. And
Yeah.
you're like, oh my God, what?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do think it takes a certain like recipe of things. My dad wanted
Mhm.
me to be a tennis player and that never stuck. So,
No.
Hmm. Okay. A little
So,
different.
yeah,
yeah.
definitely. So it sounds like, you've known from day one that words are important to you, but I'm curious, like how do you feel about them now versus when you wrote author on that paper?
Yeah, well, my journey with words has been kind of a roller coaster because, I always knew I wanted to write. I wrote poetry. I wrote books when I was, again, in elementary school that were 100% plagiarized. I like plagiarized the Moore Child and said it was mine. But you forgive you forgive elementary school kids. I didn't
Yeah.
know.
It's all right. My brother technically wrote Cinderella, so it's
Yeah.
fine.
See, like hey,
Yeah.
what is you learn by imitation, right? When
Yeah.
you're learning to paint,
Yes.
you paint other people's art. It's okay. Um,
Yes.
but then I went to college for creative writing, and then I got my MFA in creative writing. And like and I taught English in between those things. So I went to South Korea for 2 years and I was teaching words
Oh,
to
amazing.
kindergartners. Yeah, so I have a lot of life experience with just like words and teaching words and writing words. And but then this is where the journey starts to roller coaster is because after I graduated with my master's, I was like, oh, I have like so much student debt and I need to do something about it and I need to make money. And so that's when I went into marketing.
Mm.
Um, and then I kind of like fell out of love with them a little bit because I was like, I felt like they were powerful.
Mm.
It took me a while to get to this summary I'm about to share, but for a while, what I kept telling people was that it felt like I had like diverged in a wood and I
Yeah.
was getting really, really far down a path and it was the wrong path. And I
Mm.
kept looking back to be like, how far back do I have to go to write this
Mm.
choice? Um, And that's how I felt about marketing, which I'm still in marketing. So obviously the story has a different ending, but um, ultimately the like conclusion, the bumper sticker conclusion that I came to when I was at this marketing agency in New York City was like words are magic, and if
Mm.
I'm not using them for good, like then
Hmm.
what am I doing? Because at the time, I should add, I was writing for big tech companies,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
So
Mm,
like I didn't care. It was like computer mice and like
Yeah.
softwares, and I was like, I don't want like, do I want to use
Uh-huh.
this magical power I have to sell computer
right.
mice?
Yeah. God.
And I decided I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
Shock.
the
Big
yeah,
shocker. Yeah.
This
my
is not
magic is
my
being
passion.
drained.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I quit. I quit and I never thought I'd be in marketing again. And I went abroad as one does.
Hmm.
And yeah, I really thought I'd never do it again. But then, I started meeting people. I started volunteer marketing because that's what a lot of the
Hmm.
places, like I was
Oh,
teaching at schools and they needed like a new website. And I was like, all right.
yes. As a
And then
social
I was like,
media
okay,
manager, I know that world.
yes,
People are just
yes,
like, "Oh, you have this skill. Will you do it?"
yeah.
Hmm.
And then I ultimately, after 3 years of like this, right, I came to the
Yeah.
conclusion that if I could use my power of words, which is
Mhm.
conversion copy, which is to get people to buy things, right? Convince. If I could use it for businesses and people and organizations that I really cared about,
Hmm.
then that was okay. And like, so I came back
Yeah.
to it that way.
I
Yeah.
love that.
That's like such a different use of like power of words because it's still, I feel like it's hard to have that like mind map author and then like be able to just go into like published author, like, writing books, like, books at the airport and Barnes and Noble and like, speaking on panels and things and being able to like live that dream life. But then there's like bills to pay in the middle. So you kind of have to like use what skills you have and fit them into different places. And
Yeah.
like, that's like
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense. And that marketing's probably given you some like skills and other uses in other places that probably you didn't anticipate either, too. So it's a
Yeah.
it's a road, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And now it's like I really only work with solopreneurs, which means that the person is building something they care
Yeah.
about deeply. And
Yeah.
I get to I mean, because the copywriting, if you think about it, it really is magic because
Yeah.
Hmm.
it's a spell. It's using
Mm.
words to compel. And
Yeah.
um, I get to help people who really care about what they're putting out into the world make a living off of it.
I love that.
That's
I feel like
amazing.
so much of the research that I did for this episode just came back and back to the like words in the history of like using words as magic. It was like words are neutral. Like it's how you use them, right?
Hmm.
And so you can use them to curse and hex and cause harm, or you can use them to heal and empower and like give care. And so I think it's like you have your own story in a much more I don't know, less maybe whimsical version of like finding
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't want to be on the dark side of this magical power. I want to go to the light side.
Come buy
Yeah.
this thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, but that's a
Yeah.
that's a huge like powerful skill in itself though
Yeah.
too. And it's also sorry to like go back, but it's also amazing that you went to so I think we talked about this on our guest on your episode that you went to South Korea. How was that experience of like teaching English and like that language barrier and like how was that experience for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. English is hard.
It's a
Oh my God, it
very hard
is.
language.
Yeah, it really is. And I was teaching kindergartners, which means they were like
Um,
3, 4 years old
mm,
in Korea. And so they were just immersed, right? They were with me
mhm.
5 days a week from 9 to 5, like a full day, 2 weeks vacation the whole year. So they
Wow.
were just like immersed. And the idea was they would learn just by being with me and the
Mm,
other English teachers constantly. So there wasn't, I didn't have to teach like the way an adult would learn, which is
mhm.
direct, like here's the Korean word for the
Right.
English word. It was more just like teaching to talk as if you would teach a child, which so a lot of flashcards, just like being around each other, watching
Yeah.
movies, like doing
Yeah.
games, playing
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
sports. But yeah, once they got like savvy enough, they would be like, wait, like why? why does phone sound like an F? Like, I don't get it. I'd be like, I don't know.
I don't
I don't
know.
know.
We're not all linguists.
Yeah. So I'd literally just say sorry. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
try your best.
I feel like you don't know like how weird English is until you start trying to explain it to someone
Mhm.
else, and then you're
Mhm.
like, oh wait, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Wait, like I don't, and that's like the best way to like immerse yourself in a
Yeah.
new language is to just like, eat meals with people,
Yeah,
like watch
yeah.
movies, have conversations. So it's amazing you got to
Yeah.
spend that time there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
It was a blast. I
Uh,
love I loved, like, I had a class of 10 students and they were just like my best friends.
yeah. Oh,
They
that's
were so fun.
beautiful. So
that's so
I'm
sweet.
curious, like, you said that words are magic,
Mhm.
and that makes me wonder two things. One, like, what is your relationship to magic? Like, you're on a podcast with two witches, right? We talk about
Mhm.
magic all the time. Magic is a very like real and tangible thing to us, but I'm curious, like what does that mean to you, that side of it? And then also like how do words appear as magic in your life?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, very literally believe words are magic.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I grew up with a mom who like reads tarot cards and
Hmm.
so astrology, like all of that has been a part of my life since I was a kid. Um, so yes, and I think I did have a rebellious phase where I was like, I don't believe in any of this anymore because I don't like my mom. I'm a preteen, you know.
Yeah,
We get
yeah.
along great now. Sorry, I love my mom. We get along wonderfully. But I just rebelled against like, what she stood for a while. I was a terrible teenager.
We
Uh,
all were,
yeah.
you know. That's like what you have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But my sister is also like one of the most powerful witches I know, and we
Mm,
do like sigil work together sometimes. We'll do
wow.
like a Yule log,
Amazing.
and so or like write poems that are odes to
Yeah.
deities, or so yeah. it- Words as magic is very, very literal to me. It's also the
Yeah.
copy words compel, but it's and from being on my podcast, like I think
Yeah.
that words have past lives. Like
Hmm.
you dig into
Yeah.
them and you get back to the Latin origin or the Proto-Indo-European origin of a
Yeah.
word, and it's like, oh, this word is carrying so much with it.
Hmm.
And like I feel all the lives that it's carrying,
Yeah.
even if I
Mm.
don't logically know what they are. Whenever I dive into the etymology of a word, I'm like, of course.
Yeah.
I'm surprised and also like, oh, that makes sense. Like I feel the weight of that in the word,
Yeah.
in the way we use
Yeah.
it. So, yeah, they're very powerful things. Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's interesting. When I was kind of researching for this podcast, one of the things that came up for me and Caitlin when we were thinking about like words as magic and the power of words is like the origin of runic language.
Hmm.
And, the runes existed in a lot of countries and cultures. You had them in like Celtic culture, you have them in Norse culture. But the idea is that the rune means a word, but it also is that thing. Like it's so, there's a Nordic rune called like Aruz, which means bull, but it also is the spirit of the bull. And so when you're like
Mm.
using the word or when you're carving it onto something, you're not just saying the word, you're like evoking that history, that meaning, that like
Mm.
power of the all the words that or all the things that word has meant. And I wonder, like, do you think that that's still true in words today?
Yeah, I think we're just not always as consciously aware of it. Like we're almost so used to written language, but I also my grad school thesis was on ancient Sumer, so cuneiform being like
Wow.
the oldest written form of
Love
language.
that.
And
That's so
so
You really have lived and breathed words for a
I
while.
I know. It's weird that I didn't even think of that when you first asked me like that like why is that not the first thing I share? Um but yeah, so like thinking about like those words and some of the oldest spells are from
Yeah.
like clay tablets that are found in the private homes of scholars and
Mm.
scribes from that time. Um, so, but also one of the first things they would ever write down is trade. Like, hey, I exchanged a
Yeah.
sheep for this bag of grain
Yeah.
Yeah.
for
That's
record of trade.
fascinating that like that's what we decided was important to keep track of.
Yeah.
Well, how else are you going to keep track of your sheep,
Yeah,
Sarah?
true,
Like,
true.
what, you know?
Inventory has never not been hard.
Seriously.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. I think like I'm curious, what do you think it is about? And this is a question for all of us, but like what do you think it is about words that has a like why are they powerful, right? Like why is it different than just I don't know, like there's the power of mixing herbs together is one way you might make magic. Or like
Mhm.
we just did that we're doing an episode on color magic and like
Ooh,
the
Yeah.
power
yeah.
of color. And so, like, what is it about a word that has power to actually transform or change or impact anything?
Hmm.
Yeah. That's so I and my brain is thinking of like there are two ways we can talk about this, right? Because
Yeah.
there's spoken word and that is power. And then there's also
Hmm.
written word and that
Mm.
is power. And there's often like if I think about like demons, right? And like knowing the name of a demon is knowing how to have power over it, right?
Yeah.
Naming something, knowing the name of something is powerful.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But
Yeah,
also
that's
like
like classic
writing.
folklore. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
isn't that like Rumpelstiltskin or something?
Uh-huh.
That's the
Yeah.
one, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Writing words to me feels almost like taking a photograph too. It's like preserving
Hmm.
something, preserving the
Mhm.
name of something.
Yeah.
That's a really
Yeah.
cool way of like phrasing that too, because it is like an art. It is a visual art that we don't always like consider a visual art because it is like we consider kind of like writing and reading its own form of art
Yeah.
that's like separate to visual. But also like one of the things that I was thinking, so like I'm Japanese. I grew up like we have like three different types of alphabets. It's really confusing. It's it's far more complicated than it needs to be. But one of our forms of written language is kanji, which is Chinese characters that were stolen from China, and that we like adapted from pictographs to their modern meaning today. So
Hmm.
it's like one of the things that I kept on thinking about when you were talking about runes too, which is it literally is a visual representation containing a meaning that like does carry a lot of iterations
Yeah.
of what it meant before and how it changed, and then like also styles and usage and
Hmm.
relevance change over time as well. So it's interesting like when we also look at different languages that they have kind of like different levels of like visual meaning ascribed to it. And
Yeah.
kanji does look more like art. Well, there's actually like a specific like calligraphy art that we ascribe to it as well, but it's not
Yeah.
that far off.
Mm.
Yeah, it makes me think of your comment, Nicole, of like the lives that words contain in
Mhm.
them. And it's like when you're writing that word or speaking that word, you're not just like making sounds with your mouth, you're evoking like a history, a lineage of like
Yeah.
all the times that this word has been used and all the ways it has been used and by who and where and when.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. The word that keeps coming to my mind as we talk about this is capture. And I know that
Mm.
there's something negative about the word capture, but there's also like just like yeah, like
Yeah.
capturing the meaning. And I guess
Yeah.
we words have meaning, right? Like they mean
Yeah.
something. It's more than just a
Hmm.
sound, a word.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. It like it jumps timelines. It's just like
Yeah.
grabs everything from cross time and puts it in one place.
Yeah. And
Well, it's
oh, go ahead, Caitlin.
I was gonna say it's funny when you said capture, I think like because of the context that we're talking about, I assumed like capture like a picture, capture
Mm-hmm.
the video recording. And when you said negative context, I was like, taking photos is so nice. I don't know what you're talking about. And then I realized I was like, oh, okay, like to capture
Right.
something, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean
Versus
like
like holding the essence.
the
Yeah.
context like and like those are just two totally separate things that
Mm.
like I don't know, it's so cool like how I mean, I feel like it's just as simple as synonyms that I'm kind of talking about, like, but that like shift in context and that shift in meaning and like that mood
Yeah.
and color it puts on it is so interesting too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think like, spoiler for any listeners who haven't yet listened to our guest appearance on Nicole's episode or podcast, but one of the things we talk about is like the meaning of the word magic, right? And one of
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
things that came up for us is that like magic was like the ability to have an impact on the world around you, right? To like change something with about the space
Yeah.
around you. So if we're claiming that like words are magic, then I guess we're ultimately claiming that like words have the ability to have an impact or shape or change the material world around you. And I think that that's, I don't know, I'm interested in kind of exploring like why that is or how we think that happens, whether you're writing, like I think of, to your point about like writing versus speaking, I think about personally how much my world has been shaped by the books I've read and like
Yeah.
how
Mm-hmm.
reading stories has totally changed like who I am as a person and how I act in this world.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think that there are layers to this, right? So the word I believe is inherently magic on its own and it holds like histories, right? But
Mm.
then it's also an ingredient in something else.
Mm.
Like whether that's a story or a spell or
Yeah.
a letter, right? And it's just one ingredient. Like if you're thinking about a spell or a story, right? It's
Yeah.
just one ingredient. The others being like intention and
Yeah.
Right.
yeah, intention, meaning,
Yeah.
story. I don't know. Yeah, it's part of a
Mhm.
stew.
Yeah, it's a potion.
Yeah, it's a potion. Exactly.
And if so much of magic is about like, a lot of what we talk about with magic, what we keep coming back to is everything in witchcraft or magic is just like a tool to focus intention, right? A tool to focus like this is what I'm trying to create, this is the world I'm trying to build. And I feel like writing a word, it's like your pen becomes your like wand, right? And like the pen is mightier than the sword, right? So
Yeah.
you're like
Yeah.
harnessing that intention through the pen, or you're like speaking it out into the world so it becomes not just a thought, but like a real energy in the space around you that like adds
Mm-hmm.
to whatever is going on in this world beyond what we can see.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, that it's
Mhm.
like putting something into a word or a
Uh-huh.
sentence. It's inviting collaboration. It's
Mm.
like it's saying it's not just for me anymore, like it's for
Yeah.
everybody. Yeah.
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 Mm.
Actually, so I was going to talk about this later on one of the things that I researched, which was we'll talk about in a bit, which is like the rhyming schemes of spells and like the poetry of witchcraft, which is really interesting.
I'm so
But I came across, yeah, it's very cool.
excited.
But I came across a oh my gosh, I can't talk anymore. I don't smell toast.
It's
Hold on.
okay. Deep breath. You got it. Such a nurse.
I know. So when I was doing my research on this subject, I came across a quote from someone, and I feel like it's kind of appropriate for what we're talking
Mm.
about now. So this is by Yannicka Stuckey, who is quoted as they call themselves a mystic poet,
Oh,
Mm.
which
love.
is a cool title. I love it. So they say, so when we talk about poems as spells or the magical power of poetry in the modern discourse, it might also be helpful to understand what kind of magic we mean, whether poetry is transforming us or whether the poem is transforming the world around us.
Mm.
Both.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is both at the same time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, because I think like, Nicole, with your experience as like a copywriter, right? Like you're shaping the person in that you're shaping how they think about this thing or how they look at this thing by the words you
Mhm.
use. But then you're also shaping like just the words you said, Caitlin, with that quote that that person calls themselves a mystic poet, that
Hmm.
immediately shapes like their role and identity in the world, and it
Hmm.
changes who they are and how like not just how we perceive them. So it's like I don't know, it's like a little bit of like transmutation that kind of meets in the
Mm.
middle.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that we've
Oh.
touched on names or like archetypes, right? Like it's the things that we call ourselves that we embody
Yeah, I
that
think that's
matter.
something Caitlin and I were thinking about a lot as we were thinking about the power of words because, this episode we're planning to have it come out in June, which is in the middle of Pride Month. And
Hmm.
Caitlin and I are both queer and non-binary, and like that words and names are such a form of like magic and identity in queer culture. And I think that like I'd be interested to hear both of your thoughts on like the speaking back to this idea of like words can be both a form of hurtful magic or helpful magic. You can use them for evil or use them for good, of like how the words we choose to use when like describing a person, describing a relationship, describing each other can be like a form of manipulating like what that thing is in this world and how it's perceived.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, one thing, like going back again to the episode we recorded together
Yeah.
on my podcast, right? The root, and this is an experience I have with every word that I dive into. The root is usually neutral, right? Like to
Mm.
be able, right? But then context and intention and time
Mm.
have like changed what the word means to us. So I don't know if this is
Yeah.
really directly answering your question, but I think yeah, so the person using the word
Right.
can be using it for good or malice.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think the word like is good or bad itself. Like it's neither. It's
Yeah.
neither good nor bad. But
Right.
it can be.
So it's almost like the word has magic, but the intention decides how that magic is cast. Like, you
Yeah.
know?
We're inventing this as we go, but
I know we're
yes.
making up our own magical system here. but I'm here for it.
Yeah, that rings true to me though. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's funny, like talking about pride as well. One of the words that like keeps on coming up in my mind as well is, and like talking about the power of hurt and help is the word gay actually. Because
Hmm.
before, like gay didn't mean homosexual. Gay strictly meant like happy, joyful,
Yeah.
free, like, and then in the 90s it was like such a slur, such a word used for harm. It was like this horrible thing to cast on somebody. Like,
Yeah.
oh, like the quote, like, oh, that's so gay or whatever. And like it
Right.
being such a negative thing. And then like now it's more of a celebratory word. Like
Hmm.
that history has happened in a very, very short amount of time.
Yeah.
And that's like that word has been doing work. That word has had a history and has been carrying a lot itself.
Yeah.
So I mean like one of the things that like I don't know what your experiences are in kind of like this area of like kind of more like a social justice area of words in which like, the power of affirmation of calling somebody their
Mm.
chosen name, the power of calling somebody their chosen pronouns, hate speech and kind of things like
Yeah.
it's such a big subject and it's like a really hard to tackle one, but I'm curious to hear kind of like your perspective on the power of words in the context of this kind of more social justice area.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. This is such a hard to tackle one. And I do want to say, like, it's so wonderful when words can be reclaimed
Yeah.
like that.
Love it. Yeah.
I think that's such a wonderful narrative. Like, that makes me really happy for the word gay. Like, I feel
Yeah.
like it got the ending it wanted if the word
Yeah.
has desires.
Yes, it got the happy
It got the
ending.
happy
Yeah.
ending. I mean, I guess time keeps moving and we'll see what happens.
Right.
But hopefully this is the this is the reclamation of the word.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think we've talked a little bit about names, right? And
Hmm.
pronouns to me like feel like in that category of just
Yeah.
what the power of like ha choosing what you want to be called and
Mm.
like what that, let me see how I want to. It's like how we were talking. What's that poem that you read, Sarah, where she said, or no, sorry, Caitlin.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was like, I read a poem?
Yeah, no, no. About the magic of poetry changing the writer and
Mm.
the reader. And I think
Yeah.
that there's something in that that has to do with social justice and
Mm.
like using the
Yeah.
words in a way that like acknowledges the power and the ability of another. Like,
Mm. No, I agree. I mean, it makes me
yeah,
think of we recently recorded an episode about glamour magic.
yeah.
And it was talking about like the root of glamour magic or the origins of glamour magic is this idea of magic that like it's not only about like changing how you look, but it's also changing the way you are perceived and like the way that people's eyes fall upon you. And I
Hmm.
feel like with the power of words, it's like when you get specific in the words you use and it's like you use words that align with whether it be someone's chosen name, whether it be pronouns or whether it be like when we're looking at like globally and politically and racially everything, and it's like using words that are accurate to describe what's happening. All
Hmm.
those things allow us to like shape how we see it and how it and not all and then how we see it is ultimately how it is, right? Because our world
Yes.
is based on our perceptions.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yes, we are always making meaning and we are
Yeah.
always shaping stories and we are, um, and this is again where I think intention matters so much. Like, okay, here, my brain has circled something and it's come to a conclusion. I feel like I've been twisting around. But going back to like this intention of using the word and whether that comes from something like love or fear,
Mm.
Hmm.
Hmm.
where the use of the
Yeah.
word is growing from. And if it's coming from love, that means you're considering the other person as
Mm.
autonomous. You're considering them as um, someone else who is also able, who
Yeah.
also has magic,
Yeah.
right? Instead
Yeah.
of this place of fear, which is only worrying about like what's going to
Mm.
happen to me. Like this is
Yeah.
confusing for me. This is right, and it's this a
Yeah.
fear-based use of the word rather than a love-based use of the word.
Mm. Yeah. It
I
makes me
love that distinction. It's like it's so true though.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it makes me think of one of the things I came across when I was like researching for this episode is one of the like Nordic Norse sagas. There's this like folk tale in one of the Norse sagas where this girl is like really, really sick and no one can figure out why. And then this like mystic, I haven't read the whole saga, so I don't know his exact identity, but he's like a magical guy. And he's like, oh, it's because the runes on your bed are like corrupt runes. Like they're written with bad intention. And it's not that the runes are different or like the words themselves are bad, but they're written in such a way that they are causing harm. And so he rewrites the runes in like a way that is intending towards healing and peace, and all of a sudden all her issues go away. And like the moral is that words have power, but how the power is delivered is based on who's wielding it and how
Hmm.
they're wielding it.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Well, like one of the things that I was just recently confronted, I worked in my unit yesterday, and so I work as an adolescent psych nurse. So we got all sorts of words flying around. Some I've never heard before. But like one of the things that keeps on coming up to my mind while we're talking about this too is like, that whole adage like sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt me.
Mm.
And I'm so sorry, like the more we're talking about this, the more I'm like, well, that's kind of bullshit.
Hmm.
It's what a lovely little rhyme thing, but like no, that's actually like the way that we talk to each other is so intentional and creates hurt and can be used as like daggers and can be
Yeah.
used with certain intention and without intention it can still cause harm, but like with that intention it
Mm.
definitely like put some meat on it, where it's like a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bullshit adage the more
I
that I think about it.
But I think that adage is a really good segue into this concept of like spell work and using words as
Yes.
spells because I think
Hmm.
like more than anything as kids, we were like chanting little spells all the time. Like that could also be seen as like a protection spell of like your words can't hurt me or like I'm rubber, you're glue. Whatever you say bounces off me and sticks to you. It's
Yeah.
like,
Huh.
have you never heard that
I've
one?
like heard a variation of it. Again, like I didn't grow up in the US, so there's a lot of things that still surprise me.
That
Like,
was a big, I
huh.
mean, you're also an only child. That was a big sibling line. Or like,
I bet.
I know you are, but what am I? Like
Oh my God, I've heard that one.
all these
Hmm.
little spells where it's like the entire thing is about words and the power of words and like reorienting where the words land. And I think that like as I was doing this research, like I know Caitlin, you have stuff to share about spell work, and one of the things I
Yeah.
came across in my research was like the like Greek magic papyri. And it's this old Greek tradition where people would write like ancient Greece, they would write like petitions to the gods and goddesses like on papyrus. And it was believed that like again, it wasn't the god coming down and granting the petition that made it magic, but it was the paper itself that was magical. And so they
Hmm.
would like write these spells or poems call like either asking for protection. It was really common to use to like win a legal case and be like, I want
Mm.
my sheep to be more important than their sheep. Like whatever. And I think like, I want you to share your research as well, Caitlin, because I just think there is so much fascinating history and like from the moment people were using words, it was like, oh, there's something here. Like we can use these words to create the world we live in.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. That's exactly what I was thinking too, Sarah. It's a protection spell.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So good.
Totally. Yeah. So Caitlin, I'm curious what you found in your research into the rhyming and the spell work.
Yeah. I found so one of the things that I was really curious about because we when we did that episode on what is witchcraft versus Wicca, we read over the Wiccan, is it Reed?
Yeah.
Reed, Rede. And it's this like kind of like long poem.
Yeah.
It's a poem for all intents and purposes, and it's like all a rhyming scheme all the way down, and then it kind of harkens back to this like, I actually pulled it up here. Hold up. And to our lovely like Macbeth, double double toil and trouble. It's the three witches over the cauldron, and the whole
Yeah.
thing is rhyming because Billy Shakespeare really loved this rhyming scheme and iambic pentameter. We like loved it. But it also just became so associated with like like spells and this Wiccan
Hmm.
Reed. So I was really curious about like poetry as it exists in spellcraft. So one of the a couple of things that I found, and I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts on this as word wizards yourself. Um, so some of the ideas, it's not like super written in stone of like why this is the case.
Yeah.
One of the things is that it just kind of sounds fun. It sounds pretty. It's lovely. If we're gonna say stuff, why not make it sound like rhymey and bouncy and
Yeah.
fun? The other one is that it kind of evokes this like trance-like hypnotic quality
Mm.
of the way that the words and the cadence sound.
Yeah.
But kind of talking about what we were just talking about as well, it's also very easy to remember. And in an age when writing was not accessible to everyone, and witchcraft was very persecutable.
Yeah.
So writing things down wasn't exactly safe for anyone
Hmm.
to do, nor would it probably be preserved because it would probably be burned with the witch herself.
Yeah.
So it's really easy to remember a rhyming scheme. And it's even easy for like children to remember. Like one of the ones that I had come to mind is like, 30 days, half September. It's a functional thing that I can remember. Spells are
Totally.
also functional. So like being able to remember it in a rhyming scheme is way easier. It's
Yeah.
not exactly sure where all this came from, but like those are the kind of ideas of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, I love that. My brain kept going. April, June, and November.
Yeah. It's such like
Exactly.
a automatic like sing-songy
Yeah.
thing.
Yes.
And when we're
So
doing
good.
things like spellcraft where it's like a ritual has an intention or it's marking something commemorative,
Hmm.
um, we have certain things that we say when we get married. We have certain things that
Yeah.
we say on birthdays.
Yeah.
So it also like evokes kind of this idea that this is like a special moment too,
Yeah.
which is really
It
interesting.
it also makes me think of my mentor, one of my mentors always would say that like when you're, writing prayers or incantations, like you can write your own. There's nothing wrong with that. But the benefit of using like, ones that have been shared before is that like to this point of like the history of words is that it has more power, more energy because it's been repeated and used over and over. And so there's like this history of calling in this incantation for this purpose. And so when you have that rhyming scheme and that like ability to share it orally, it also allows it to like gain power because you're all like
Mhm.
saying it over and over again and adding that intention into that phrase again and again and again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like it calls again, it's makes me think of timelines and calling in
Yeah.
ancestors and like it's
Yeah.
a witches circle that's not just like present witches, it's all the
Totally.
witches throughout history have all like fed into this spell, the meaning of
Yeah.
this incantation.
I love
Makes it more
that.
powerful
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you
Oh,
can actually remember it if it has some
Yes.
sing-songy quality to it. That's like
Yeah.
super fun. And everybody remembers, double double toil and trouble and like
right.
the, you know.
Yeah. That makes
Um
me think of the Mary-Kate and Olsen twins. That's fine.
Yes.
Mary-Kate and Ashley.
Too many things make me think of the Olsen twins.
Oh my God.
I loved those
Uh,
movies though.
Uh-huh.
I think I only saw
Uh,
one of them growing up, but I remember
uh,
they were
oh, they
everything.
were
They
Yes.
were
everything.
oh.
So good.
One also other little part of poetry as spell work is rooted in feminism,
That's
is
some
that
feminism.
we love it. So apparently kind of this idea of spell work also kind of harkens or sorry, evokes this idea of like feminist power. So
Mhm.
poetry and art and writing and all this lovely stuff that we never got to partake in before was just reserved
Yeah,
for men.
yeah.
Men would be educated, men would be meeting in
Mm,
their, weird little circles where they would all share their ideas and stuff. And they were homophobic, which sounds really weird because that is so gay. All these men meeting up to talking about art. Like, come on. Um, but so it was all this kind of like boys' club of
mm,
poetry, of art, of literature. And so women being able to use poetry to evoke really strong emotions. And that's what spell work is, really
mm,
pulling on is, you know, anger or sympathy
mhm,
or lust or whatever it is, and being able to use those emotions to come out in a way that evokes emotions or like expresses emotions, which is in art and poetry. And so women being able to use that for
mm,
witchcraft is this kind of act of transgression, is
mm.
like this art of saying, fuck you, men, we're here too.
Yeah,
We're just not as like revered or no one's writing down our
right, right,
stories. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
right.
the earliest poet on record is Enheduanna, and she was an Akkadian, like ancient
Oh,
Sumerian priestess of Inanna. So
Oh.
all of her poetry is like also very sexual, like about plowing fields, like with the goddess
okay.
Oh,
Inanna. So like it's definitely queer. It's
Yeah.
but
love.
yeah. But yeah, Enheduanna she was the daughter of a king, an Akkadian king. I forget his name. I think it begins with an S. But yeah, um,
Yeah.
that's like the earliest poetry you can find.
I did not know that. That is fantastic. And she's a priestess
Yeah.
who's
Yeah.
plowing. We love
A
it.
priestess, yeah.
Have either of you ever heard of the book Once and Future Witches?
Yes.
No, I
Oh,
haven't.
You
it's so
recommended
good.
this to me,
It is
Sarah.
the first time since like literally since I read Harry Potter as a child that I like got so wrapped into a book that I like had to like take a day off and just sit and read it. Like it pulled me. Talk about
I
words of
want
magic.
that.
Oh, so magical. And it's one of the like it's three like sister witches basically like figuring out the power and magic and stuff. And one of the three witches is like the nerdy librarian, and her whole thing throughout the whole story is trying to find spells and realizing, as someone who's always been like books, library, intellectualism, that that's not where the spells are. They are in the like little rhymes that they would sing outside of the house, and like, all these little folk tales and things that your mom would sing while washing the sheets that were like just secret ways of like passing powerful information of like, oh, this herb can be used in this way. And I know this because there's a rhyme that includes like, what's that rhyme from Practical Magic, or that quote from Practical Magic that's like, keep rosemary and like all in lavender in your garden and all fall in love as much as you can, or something.
I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about, and I don't know it.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
and our listeners have Google. Um
I also have once in future, so I have like a little notepad where I write things down of like during our podcast, we'll be like,
yeah.
oh, write that down. That's a great idea. I have once in future witches like written on a note sitting on my desk as we speak right now. So
Good,
Sarah talks
good.
about this a lot.
Yeah, it's a great book.
Oh,
Everyone
cool.
should read it. But it really talks about that like power of like yeah, of like using words as magic, and like specifically, we kind of started on the written word and the power there, but of like the spoken word and the power of like rhyme and like and folklore and oral history as a way to like share messages and share magic without it being like available for persecution in the way that the written word is, you know?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also just
Um,
more, like we said, accessible. Like
Yeah.
writing is accessible now, but it wasn't for
Yeah.
such a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So I actually have one last little tidbit that kind of ties into one of my questions from earlier. And actually, as I was researching this, I was like, I'm out of my depth. Nicole needs to be researching this because this is like not my wheelhouse of searching. But can I tell you guys about the word abracadabra?
Yes.
Yes.
So, I'm so excited. So actually, Nicole, I think you need to go do a little deep dive on this
Okay.
because abracadabra may have come as early as the second century.
Whoa.
Yes. And it was originally cited as a cure for a fever. It was
Huh.
originally written in a book by, bear with me, Serenus Sammonicus in Liber Medicinalis. So like Liber book Medicinalis, medicine.
Okay.
So this was like a word that actually was supposed to think that they thought would cure fevers and malaria and other
Huh.
maladies. So they would write the word, the whole idea was to write the word abracadabra in a triangle form. So abracadabra, abracadab, abracada,
Oh, I've
Oh,
abraca.
seen
yeah.
this. Yeah, we're both like, oh
This has
yeah.
Yes.
been in some movie, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's this triangle of kind of like I don't know if you guys saw Friends, but like when Phoebe spells her name is like P as in Phoebe, he H as in Hebe.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm talking
O as
about?
in Obi,
O
E as
as in
in E.
Obi.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
It was
kept on
like a
thinking
little
about that.
like inverse pyramid where you lose letters as you go down.
Yes.
Oh.
So the prescription for fever or malaria or other malaise was to wear an amulet that had that
Hmm.
phrase written on it.
Hmm. Oh,
So
I love
the
this.
right. So one of the ideas, there's conjectural etymologies.
Mm.
No one's super sure of where it came from, but two ideas are that one came from Hebrew, and it's supposed to mean "I will create as I speak,"
Ooh.
Love.
which gave me chills.
Yeah.
The other one is Aramaic, and it's "I create like the word."
Ooh. Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, so
Oh.
abracadabra, not just popularized by Lady Gaga, was probably around like in some of like the earliest probably like earlier written histories that like we kind of have available in the area of like witchcraft,
Oh.
which I think is really cool.
Okay, this is triggering a total major nerd moment here. But little known fact, I did a master's degree in the study of consciousness.
Oh.
Um, and one of the things we talked about in that class, because it was like it had psychology, neuroscience, and philosophy all within one program. And one of the things the neuroscience part talked about was that like words and symbols and the use of symbols to communicate is the way that we as humans have learned how to take the internal like experience of the world and form it into an actual thing that we can share with one another to like allow our brains to communicate basically. So it's like, okay, I'm perceiving this
Oh.
thing and it feels this way, and how do I share that experience with you who I'm talking to? And it's like first we draw pictures because that's the best way we know how to do it, and then we start making sounds, and then eventually we develop language as a way to say like a shared to meet that shared experience so that we can like communicate about what is abstract because it's happening inside of our brain. And so words turn the abstract experience into a concrete reality is the concept. And so this sentence, like I create like the word is creating like a substance or an essence out of like an abstract experience.
Oh my God.
Total nerd moment.
That was amazing though. Because yeah, we can both have a similar external
Yeah.
experience, but like have different internal ones. And how do we communicate what it was like for us?
Yeah.
Wow.
I love like I create like I want that as like a tattoo. Like I
I know,
create
I was
like the
thinking the same.
word. Like this idea, I love this idea. I think it's so much to me like what we've been circling around with the power of words is like the word
Mhm.
is is an entity and it's like it is creating a reality.
Yeah. It's hard
So
to not
I'll
to mention
go ahead.
Genesis. Like,
Yeah.
it's hard not to talk about like the creation of the world
Yes.
through speak. Like I speak and so it is so. Like I
Yeah.
say the word light and so light exists.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the
Yeah.
origin of story of creation in general, right?
Yeah.
Like, or
Yeah,
one
and God
origin
said, "Let there
Yeah.
be
story.
light,"
God said, let there
you
be light.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it was, and it was so, or I was taught by nuns in kindergarten, and I don't remember this stuff, so
I know
um
I'm sitting here like my grandpa thought religion was for the weak. I don't know, man. I'm like, I believe
um
you.
so what I'm also hearing is that we're all getting abracadabra tattoos. Is that like
I'm
is
in.
that the vibe? Yeah, okay.
Oh man. So Nicole, I'm
Um
wondering with like your personal experience, like with the work you do, um, what have you, we were talking a lot kind of about the magic of words in spell work, the magic of words in communication and naming things. How have you seen this power like in action with your clients and with the work you're doing? Like what kind of transformation or power do you see words bringing to people other than the very simple thing of like we read them and we want to buy the thing?
I mean, yes, in the work I do now, that is the ultimate goal, right? So I'm
Yeah.
writing for people who want to make money off of the thing that they're putting into the world because we live
Yeah.
in capitalism and we must survive.
Hmm.
So a lot of the people I work with are not super, like they hate that that's the thing they want,
Yeah.
but it's the thing they need
Yeah.
at this moment
Yep.
in time, right? So there's always this kind of shame, this push-pull of
Mm.
like, yes, I want to make more money because I want
Yeah.
security and freedom
Of
and but I don't
course.
really want to say out loud that I want to
Yeah.
make more money. But that's always the goal.
Yeah.
Um, but like true conversion copywriting, which
Hmm.
conversion is a word that I've talked about on the podcast that is a little icky, right? We use it.
Yeah. Hmm.
We use it because it's well known in the industry, but
Yeah.
it's not the nicest word. Um, but there's so much that goes into it as far as like understanding the person you're talking to. So not only is it just like this sentence is going to convince someone to buy something, it's
Hmm.
mhm.
what is the fear that's keeping the person up at night and how do we talk to that? Like if they like because ultimately everything you're selling is solving a problem, right?
Mm.
People buy things that solve problems. So
Right.
you have
Mm.
to understand the person that has the problem and also the problem really, really well.
Mm. Yeah.
So
Interesting.
what I'm saying is that
Yeah.
it's very, very intentional because the best conversion copywriting is deeply, deeply empathetic,
Mm.
right? It'll say to you like, hey, an example I often use for this is I have a super, super reactive dog, right?
Uh-huh.
Like super reactive, barks at like lawnmowers if they're parked in someone's lawn. Like she's like, that's new. That wasn't here yesterday.
Yes.
Freaks out. Halloween is a nightmare because of all the
Oh
balloon
God, yes.
decorations in
Oh
the
I had a
no.
dog who
uh,
hated Halloween
yeah. I
decorations.
love Halloween. I
Me
think it's
too.
great. She thinks they're terrifying, and I get
Oh.
that. Yeah. But like if someone were to market something to me, to use copy to me that speaks to the actual like lived
Mm.
felt experience that I have walking my reactive dog down the street
Mm.
of like the shame that I have to turn around if I see someone else with a dog. Like we can't go
Right.
near that dog because my dog's gonna bark her head off and she's
Right.
60 pounds and scary and like people are gonna be scared of us. And like there's so much of my internal
Right.
experience that like the person marketing to me needs to understand my internal
Hmm.
experience and to be able to talk about it well
Yeah.
to
Mm.
be able to sell something to me
Yeah.
effectively. Like it can't just be like, buy this thing because it's tasty. It has to be like,
Right.
buy this thing because you deserve a moment for yourself. I feel like I'm quoting a Dove commercial. That's just what came to my
Well, you
head.
know what? Dove was a very successful
Yeah,
brand.
yeah. Um, so that
Oh,
is that my experience of like how it works in my
yeah.
work is it is that it's deeply empathetic and
Yeah.
it can be used for bad. Like it can be used for evil. Like knowing
Totally.
how
Yeah.
to tap into the fears that keep someone up at night, like
Yeah.
knowing how to do that, that's like,
Mhm.
yeah, you have a lot of responsibility with that power.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't want to like
Absolutely.
create shame in order to solve shame.
Right.
Like you have to market ethically, you have to tap into the pain and shame that already
Mm.
exists and be like, I know you're experiencing this and I've created a solution. Can I tell you about it?
Yeah.
Not like, hey, did you realize that you're getting old and ugly and so like buy this skin cream, right? Like
I
that's
was
not ethical.
literally,
Yeah.
I was thinking about that. Like, I mean, we're like inundated with ads,
Right.
like literally everywhere you go. I can't watch a YouTube video that's like a minute long without seeing five ads along the way.
Right.
And so much of it, I feel like I wish all of them were you because like so many of them just like they're like, "Oh, aren't you embarrassed of that like mustache hair?" And I was like, "Oh my God, like
Am
I kind of
I?
like my little
Now that you
mustache
mention
hair. I don't know.
it.
Now that you say it, like, aren't you disgusted by this thing about yourself? And you're like, oh, I never thought about that, but now I am. Like, what the
Yeah.
hell? Like, I never. And it takes a
Yeah.
lot of work to, I think, like, counteract that or be aware of that
Mm.
because it just has so much of it happen so subconsciously too.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's a fine line. Like I think it's like a line you have to be aware of and be like, "Ooh, did I just cross it?" Like,
Right.
am I
Yeah.
creating problems or am I solving problems?
Right,
And
because if
that's the
words
line.
do have the power, like if we take that idea of like I create or I create like the word, like if words do create our
Hmm.
reality, then you can create this fear, this shame, these problems for
Hmm.
people. But on the flip side, like we're talking about words being the real like the thing that brings our internal experiences to the external reality. So
Mhm.
it's also
Hmm.
like it has the ability to connect us through the things that we've shared internally but have not yet figured out how to share externally.
Yeah.
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 No,
One of,
that's
go ahead.
no, no, go ahead.
Sorry.
I was just agreeing. Go ahead, Caitlin.
So like one of the experiences that I have kind of like in this realm as well is I have to do de-escalation a lot. It's one of my favorite things and I know it's some I'll pat myself on the shoulder. I know it's something that I'm actually quite good at. I've stood in front of, 6 foot something manically aggressive people and just like been like, "Hey, let's talk, bud." Like, what do we want here? And like also just knowing too, I kind of feel like it almost has this like little parallel, but just a totally different usage in that like marketing
Yeah.
area, which is like I'm trying to sell you the idea of like not beating the shit out of me or anyone else. Like, what do you think? Um,
Yeah.
cool? Like, are you on
Yeah.
board? And I do notice one of the things that I've realized is a total like in my experience of doing this a lot is I never ever say, I know how you feel. Because
Mm.
when I say that, the immediate like 0 to 100 is so wild to watch because it really triggers something in people. And that's such a thing that you want to do is like, oh, I know how you're feeling. Like, I totally empathize
Yeah.
with you. But when you say that to people, they're like, you don't know me. You don't know who I am. And it's real, it feels like something so innocuous, but
Yeah.
seeing the impact that I've seen it have, I've changed my tactic to I kind of do this little fake thing where I'm like, I know how you're no. I don't know how you're feeling because I'm not you. I really don't.
Yeah.
But I can understand maybe what it would be like to be you.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think it's like really interesting too the way that we can like subconsciously and like unintentionally like we talk about a lot about intentional words
Yeah.
of spells rituals like creating things creating connection but also the way that like what you say really carries something maybe that you don't even know that it carries as
Yeah.
well.
Mhm. Well,
Yeah.
and that reminds me of like classic storytelling advice, classic copywriting advice is show,
Yeah.
don't tell. I've
Yes.
heard that phrase.
Yeah.
Like, in order to have true empathy, you have to say, like, here's a thought that might be in your head right now because I've experienced it too. Like, it's this
Mhm.
the hyper
Yeah.
detail of
Yeah.
like this is maybe like something that is happening and providing the detail of it rather than trying to summarize it into I know what you
Yeah.
feel. It's like show an example that you know how they feel.
It's
Yeah.
making me think like, you know how earlier you said that this conversation was bringing up the word capture, which is like has weird connotations. For me, the word that's coming up right now is manipulative or manipulation. And it's
Yeah.
like, again, that's one where we hear like, oh, manipulation, like, oh, red flag. but it's also like no, like the real power of words to manipulate the environment and like shift the way we're connecting to one another, and what's like being said is changing what's happening around us.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think
Then call me a
manipulate.
manipulator because I do that a lot.
Yeah. I do. I think this is controversial, but I think the word manipulate has gotten a bad like
Yeah.
rap.
Mhm.
Because you're right, like magic is us trying to
Right.
manipulate. Like if we think
Or
of
like a
just
Rubik's Cube, like you're manipulating,
we're
like
always manipulating the world and the people around us,
yeah.
always, intentionally or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, being labeled as manipulative is not something you want.
No.
No, I was
But
just thinking about my experience that I was sharing, and I'm like, that sounds so like backwards psychology. But in the end,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like what I'm doing is trying to manipulate a situation so that people don't get hurt.
Right.
Is
The
that so
power of
somebody
words.
feels
Yeah.
somebody feels understood, so somebody doesn't want to make a bad choice, and then like,
Right.
you know,
yeah,
Yeah.
something
I
else
think
bad happens.
I think you're
Yeah.
doing good work.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks.
So I'm curious, with all this talk, Nicole, about like word, and maybe I should put us in the hot seat too and make us answer this question. But with if words are magic, if we decide that like words are magic and they have power, what is one spell you're still learning to cast?
Ooh.
Hmm.
What is one spell I'm still
Oh,
learning
okay.
to
I do want all
cast?
of us to answer this,
Okay,
so start
yeah.
thinking, Caitlin.
Oh, I think I have mine.
Cool.
I think that the hardest spells for me are
Mm.
internal. They're changing my own thoughts. It's like
Yeah.
Mm.
manipulation of self. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the yeah. So just
Yeah.
like the internal like beliefs that you've grown up with, right? Like
Yeah.
what's commonly been called like limiting beliefs in our online
Yeah.
coaching culture that we're all aware of.
Mm.
But yeah, like feeling
Yeah.
figuring out like what kind of role a word has had on your life and
Yeah.
how to change what it means for yourself. Yeah.
Mm. I love that. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think that for me, like similar, my mind immediately went like internal. And I think for me, the one that I've been really like trying to learn how to cast, so to speak, is like sustainability, of figuring out like what is a sustainable lifestyle for me? Like what does it mean to live sustainably? Like both for the world around me, but for my own energy and my own lifestyle. And so I think that's one I'm still trying to learn to cast.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you,
I think
Caitlin?
I think I have two that I'm learning to cast. One is like definitely more word spell, and that's boundaries and saying no.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's really tough for me. And the other one is also kind of touching on what you said, Nicole, is like talking to yourself. I'm like very, very hard on myself,
Yeah.
and I always tell my patients, like, when they're like, oh, I'm so stupid, or like, oh, like things will never get better, or whatever. I always say, like, you have a reptilian brain on the inside. You have like caveman brain that still lives there. And whatever you say to yourself, your brain also hears and processes.
Yeah.
So, like, when you're speaking to yourself, be kind, even
Mm.
if you don't mean it at first, because you're going to hear it and you're going to process it and it's going to be true.
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
working on self, being kinder to myself.
Kindness.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I love
great.
that.
Yeah.
Ah,
Um, I hate to break up like the flow of what we're doing because Sarah, I know like what point you're at right
yeah, you
now.
can see my notes.
I can see your notes. Well, I'm not looking, but I also like
Yeah.
I'm in your brain. One of the things, and we can like cut this and put it in a little bit earlier if we want to, but one of the questions that I had for you too, um, on the lines we went into a different kind of like line of conversation, so I loved where we went, but I wanted to go back to
Let's do it.
talking about like abracadabra and talking about these kind of like runes and older languages.
Oh, I
My
know exactly
question,
what your question is.
yeah, my question is, um, do you think that words like spells or words from older language carry more meaning or are more magical inherently just because they're older, even if we don't understand what
Right,
they
like
mean?
can Riz be as powerful of a word?
Oh my goodness. I don't know if I have like a for sure because there okay,
Yeah.
I think my in support of older languages are more powerful
Mm.
are this th conversation we were having earlier
Mm.
about witches over time and the more that a spell is spoken, the more
Mm.
power it has like over time. So
Yeah.
if a spell has had centuries longer to like exist,
Hmm.
then yeah, maybe it is.
Right.
Right? But another conversation we've had today is how important intention is. And I
Yeah.
think
Right.
that if it's not like a language that you know well,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
then it might be harder for like you.
Yeah.
Like for me, I don't know German, right? Like if I were to say a spell in German, I don't think
Right.
it would have as much
Hmm.
power because my intention would be watery, it'd be diluted,
Yeah.
right? And I don't know
Oh.
Latin, even though Latin's, and so I same. Um, so I've just argued for and against. And
No, I
I
agree
think that's yeah.
I agree
Yeah.
wholeheartedly because there is like a tradition in the Nordic, world of like you chant a rune over and over to like evoke that power. And I remember when I first learned about that, I really didn't resonate with it because I would be chanting this word and I'd literally, my mind would just be wandering because I was like, I don't know what I'm saying. Like, I wasn't present with it. On the
Yeah.
flip
Yeah.
side, like the idea is that word has this power and you're evoking it over and over again. But then, like,
Hmm.
when I share, if I do like a workshop or work with a client and I share like a prayer that I use for a ritual or a spell I use, I always say, like, change this. Like, as you're reading this, if there are words that don't resonate or pull you out of it, like, that don't match your intention, change it because the whole point is that you're feeling like what you're experiencing inside is being brought into the words that you're reading, right? And so, like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
if you're reading the sentence and it makes your brain go like, that's not what I think, then you're not like channeling the intention of the spell. And so I think I completely agree with you. Yes and no.
Oh no.
Yeah. So I think
Yeah.
one of the things that's really weird and like kind of a little bit like I don't know if it's like kind of media propaganda-y or
Yeah.
like weird kind of like gatekeeping of like, oh, you need to like speak in tongues to be able to evoke this thing, like and there, there's like those movies where you have like this old sorcerer who's like,
Yeah.
speaking like this ancient language over a book, and you're like, oh shit, that's real power, like that's real magical. Even if that sounds like really
Yeah.
scary, even though I have no idea what he's saying. So I feel like there's this kind of like
Yeah.
misunderstanding about, well, if
Yeah.
I'm using Latin, it means it's like more authentic. If I'm using,
Yeah.
like,
If you're reading the Grimoire.
Yeah. Yeah.
yes,
I just keep
yes.
thinking of that song in Wicked where she's like, "Helikanana, chuma chu
Yeah.
helikanam."
Yeah, exactly.
Where it's like,
I'm like, I
oh,
don't know
it's
what this
magic
is.
is happening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know what's gonna happen if I say this, or like, or I keep on thinking of those like old like teen coming of age movies, and there's like a girl, she's like,
Yeah.
I found a book. Oh my God, what does this say? Like blah 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 blah. Oh my God, and then like something happens, or like, you
Yeah.
know,
Like the demon names having power, right? Like she like
Yeah.
invokes
mhm.
a demon on accident or whatever.
Whoops.
Yeah.
You're
I
like,
think
oh
that's more the
shit, there's an old
demon's
wizard.
magic.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too.
The
Well,
demon has
amazing.
used her as a vessel.
Okay, well, this was incredible. I loved this conversation. I think
Yeah.
we have maybe one last question for you, and then we can pull some tarot cards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So we wanted to share a quote with you because on your episode or on your podcast, we found a Terry Pratchett quote, and then we were prepping for this episode and we found another Terry Pratchett quote, and we're like, oh, we have to.
Yes.
So the quote we wanted to share is, but some things were too big to be really trapped in words, and even words were too powerful to be completely tamed by writing.
Ooh.
That
I
also
don't know.
gave me chills.
I know.
Yeah.
It's also cold today, but I'm also affected. I'm moved.
That's beautiful. One of my favorite authors is Ursula K. Le Guin.
Oh,
Are you
good.
familiar?
Yes,
I am
very.
Huge,
not.
huge fan.
Oh
I love the
no,
name Ursula,
Caitlin,
though.
we
I
are
think that
changing your
you
life
will.
today.
Yes. Um,
Oh
okay,
my
so
God.
two things. Two things I want to say. One is one of my favorite books by Ursula K. Le Guin is
Mhm.
called The Word for World is Forest.
The world. I've not heard of this book. I'll have to check this one
Oh,
It's
out.
an
Okay.
older one. It's so good. It's so very short. You
Okay.
can read it in like a day. Um,
Perfect.
yeah, it's from the 70s.
Mm,
It's uh yeah, the word for world is forest. It takes place on another planet, but I think
okay.
on Earth you could even say the word for world is
Yeah.
forest. Yeah. Um
Yeah, Tara or yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's also the this is a side note, but the alien species, they can like drift in and out of dream state, like just by will. And the way that is written from their perspective is mind
Oh my
blowing.
God, yeah, I'm gonna
So
go buy this like
gotta read
in
it.
10
Gotta
minutes.
read it. But also she has a quote about writing where she says, like, the artist puts in words what cannot be put in words.
Mm,
The writer puts in words like what cannot be put in words. Oh shoot, I'm messing it up. I'm
do you
gonna
want,
Google it.
I was gonna say, do you want to take a moment and Google it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hold on.
I love this
Good, because I've been wanting
conversation.
to drink this last sip, but I have to slurp to do it. So,
Slurp away.
I used to have a poster of this. Okay, here's what she says.
okay.
So Ursula Le Guin says, the artist deals in what cannot be said in words. The artist whose medium is fiction does this in words. The
Mm.
novelist says in words what cannot be said in words.
Hmm.
Which
I
is,
I
love
love
that.
that. I mean, yeah, it's exactly the same idea, right? Like their words were too powerful to be completely tamed by writing. It's like
yeah,
you're trying to like share this thing that even words can't properly share.
yeah.
Mhm.
I think that's always what we're doing with words
Yeah,
is like it's always a practice, it's always an attempt.
yeah,
I don't know, like I think it's so rarely perfect. Like the
yeah,
writing that you read that makes you feel like, oh, that was true. Like I think like
yeah.
sometimes there are sentences like that, right? Where you
Mm,
read them and you're like, that
right.
is my experience. But I
Yeah.
don't think it happens all the time, but I do think that's what writers are always trying to do.
Yeah, yeah,
I like furiously underline all of my like books that I
yeah,
have, and when I find a line like that, I will always like underline. And
yeah,
one of my favorite things to do is also like pass those books that I've like annotated and pass them on and say like use a different color pen and
yeah,
underline things that
Huh.
speak to you too, because you never know like
yeah.
what is gonna capture that
Mm,
like thing that you just like
yeah,
vibrate with, right?
yeah.
Like, oh my God, I get that.
What a
Right.
beautiful
Um,
practice. That's such a,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because I
yeah,
think that
it's a loving thing.
yeah.
yeah, and I think one of the things we just keep circling back to is that like words are our attempt to create a real representation of an internal experience. And so it's like
Hmm.
we're always trying to like find that connection through words, but it's never the actual thing. It's a representation of the thing, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So we want to
Uh,
pull a tarot card.
oh
Yes.
wait. Oh, do we want to do our last, very, very last little question
You want to do it
before?
before or after tarot? I have no preference.
Let's do a tarot card at
I
the
feel like it's a
end.
good like
Oh,
okay, you
good
go. Okay.
end?
Yeah,
I
I feel
don't
like
know.
it's a
What are we
good like
doing?
seal. I feel like we do
Oh,
the
it's a good
tarot
seal.
card and then we seal with the last question because it's not really related to words.
Perfect.
Okay.
Cool.
Let's pull a tarot card.
All right, so we tend to end every episode with a tarot card pulling. So I asked you, Nicole, ahead of time if you had a deck, and you said yes. So we would love for
Mhm.
you to pull a card. We are happy to help you interpret it. And we usually ask a question related to the topic. So an example of what we might ask today is like, um, pulling a card to help us reflect on the role words play in our lives or how we use words to create magic.
Hmm. Which one?
You
Which question?
choose.
Oh my gosh. Let's
Or
see.
something else if something else resonates with you.
What was the first question you asked? I think that one.
Yeah, like a card to help us reflect on the role of words in our
I
lives.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
A card to help us reflect. Okay. Oh, I should sh tell you my deck. So I have
Yeah.
the Forager's Daughter Tarot,
Okay. Ooh.
which is,
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
it's
it's
pretty. Caitlin,
beautiful.
add it to our list.
It's on Etsy. The
Wow.
designer, oh shoot, her name's Jessica something. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking. Um, I'll look it up after. But The Forager's Daughter, if you Google it, you'll find it.
Cool.
okay. I'm looking that up like immediately.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Wait till you see the cards. You hear the shuffling.
Oh, I love it.
Hmm.
It's my favorite part of editing.
The ASMR.
The little like
All right, let's
Mine
see.
is usually like ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk.
yeah.
All right, so as I was shuffling, this one fell out. So this is it.
Okay.
It's the Nine of Pentacles. We've
Ooh.
got
Ooh.
a sleepy cat and three
Oh,
pentacles on the
that's so
ground
cute.
and some catnip.
Oh, I love that.
That's so
Yeah.
cute. That kind of reminds me of my partner's cat. It looks like
Yeah.
Butters a little bit. I
So,
love it.
do you have any thoughts, Nicole?
Oh my goodness. No, I think I will need your help
Okay.
interpreting. Yeah.
Kaylin, what comes? So the Nine of Pentacles in the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot, which is what we work with a lot, is the one where it's got like a person in like the long golden gown, and they've got like nine pentacles behind them, and they have like a bird on their hand and a whole like vineyard behind them.
She's
Um,
she's the boss babe.
she's a boss babe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, I've had people when they've like other readers when they've pulled this card in readings for me before say like, "Oh, this is someone who's like a very magical person," which I think is like very interesting of this whole conversation as words as magic. So, yeah, I mean, I have thoughts, but Kaylin, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, so the word that like just came to mind was like abundance. So
Mm,
usually like 9 and 10 is coming to the like completion of the like the number cards. So it's usually kind of like rounder, more satisfying ending concepts.
yeah.
And like the abundance of just like a bunch of pentacles on a like kind of like a vineyard setting
Yeah.
and just abundance. And one of the things that I keep thinking of is my creative writing teacher in high school, Brooks Hansen. He's an author, and he always used to say like get your vocabulary right. Like go deep
Hmm.
dive into things because happy is just happy, but like elated or ecstatic, euphoric, manic, like there's so many ways to just be so much more descriptive about what you're talking about.
Ooh.
So that's what like it always just
Yeah.
like reminds me of like there's an abundance of words. There's like
Mm,
such an abundance of ways we can use them.
yeah.
So don't be stingy, don't be lazy, be intentional.
Oh, I love that.
Mm.
And I had a similar kind of message come through for me. For me, it was like if words have the power to create, why not use them to create something beautiful?
Ooh,
Ah, I like that.
I like
Yeah,
that a lot.
I do
Hmm.
too.
Oh.
Okay, Nicole, this was amazing. We want to ask you one last question other than where can people talk to you? But let's start with that. Where can people find you? I also realized I never said your last name at the start, and I think it's because I had a panic. It was like, is it Cloutier? Is it Cloutier? And I was like,
Yeah.
I forgot to ask her before we started filming. So, so please introduce your full name and where
Yeah.
people can find you.
Yeah. I've actually said it differently, like my whole life. I will like
Incredible.
mix and match it.
Oh, perfect.
Perfect. Yeah. But my French teacher used to always correct me. So,
Yeah, I mean
so
that's I was gonna say like Claudier because that's
yeah.
very French, and then I was like, wait, I don't know.
Yeah. My dad says Cloutier, but my
Okay.
French teacher always said Cloutier. So yeah,
Claudier.
Nicole
Oh.
Cloutier is what I've been using since I was shamed into using it. Um, and my business is Copy Poetics. So
Yeah.
it's all about bringing poetry and copywriting
Yeah.
back together. And so, yeah, copypoetics.com is the best
Great.
place to find me. I do not use social media, so
Yeah.
that's it.
We'll have that in our bio, and of course,
Mhm.
it's all poetry. The podcast is fantastic
Yes.
to listen to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Nicole, our last question before we leave is what's one piece of everyday magic you wish people would notice more?
The moon.
Oh.
Oh, I love
We had
that.
the same reaction. What about the moon do you find like just magical? It
Yeah,
is already
well,
magical, but you know.
it is magical. I'm a Cancer rising, so I think the
Oh,
moon
hmm
is like, I mean, it is my planet, right? It's my ruling
Right.
planet.
hmm
Um, so I live in Florida. I've lived in Florida for 2 years. It was kind of an accident. Like I never intended to live here. It's very hot.
Mm-hmm.
My dog and I walk at like 5:30 in the morning so that we can have a nice walk before it gets too hot. And usually, especially when the moon is full, it's like there. Like it's on our walk. Like we
Yeah.
walk towards it. I like stare at it the whole way. And when I have to turn my back on it to come home, I'm always like looking back over my shoulder,
Oh,
just checking on it.
yeah.
So yeah, I just think like staring up at it for like a long moment, like
Yeah.
letting yourself stare at it is very, very magical and it's
Hmm.
there all the time.
I
Always
love
available unless
that.
it's too cloudy. Yeah.
That's
I love
beautiful.
that. Yeah.
Okay, well,
That is
thank you.
definitely magical.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Nicole. This was so wonderful. And
hmm
we'll end our podcast as we always do. So, as is above.
So is below,
as is within.
so is without.
Thank you.
I love you.
And bless
And bless
me.
me.
Bye.
Bye.